On the morning of my 68th birthday, I found a package waiting on the porch. No card. No return address. Just a few sharp words scrawled across the wrapping, "Happy birthday." I knew that handwriting instantly. 3 years had passed since I'd seen it, but it had once filled the grocery lists on our fridge and the notes left on the kitchen counter. It belonged to my son, Nathan. Inside the box lay a bottle of whiskey so finely dressed in green and gold that it belonged on display, not in a glass. For a long moment, I only stared at it. Nathan hadn't cared, or hadn't remembered, that I'd quit drinking the night I nearly lost my life to a failing heart. He'd been there in the hospital when the doctor read me the list of what could and couldn't cross my lips again. I didn't open it. Instead, I carried it across town to Charles, my daughter-in-law's father, the kind of man who'd once climbed on my roof without waiting to be asked after a storm had ripped half the shingles away. He deserved something nice. A simple bottle of whiskey, I thought. But it turned out to be something else, something that almost ended us both. The bottle sat on my kitchen table for hours that day. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds in golden stripes, catching the whiskey until it glowed as if fire lived inside it. I ran my thumb over the wax seal, smooth against the worn ridges of my skin. Once, whiskey had been my ritual. Not in excess, never that, but carefully measured. 1 glass after a long day mending fences or raking leaves. When my wife, Clara, was alive, we'd share it after Sunday dinners, the porch swing creaking beneath us while crickets filled the silence. That was before my heart betrayed me, before the doctor said another glass could mean another collapse. Nathan knew that. He'd stood right beside me when the doctor delivered the warning. He hadn't said a word, just kept his eyes on his phone, thumbs moving fast. I told myself he was only trying to keep from crying. Now I wasn't so sure. We hadn't fought. Not exactly. He just stopped coming, first Sunday dinners, then holidays, until the silence between us thickened into a wall. And now, on my birthday, his handwriting sat in front of me like a ghost I couldn't name. The envelope taped to the side of the package was plain and thin, the kind a bill might come in. Inside was a single card with 2 words in blue ink, "Happy birthday." No Dad. No signature. Just the phrase standing alone, like it was afraid to say anything more. I pushed the bottle to the far edge of the table and turned back to my coffee. It had gone cold, bitter in the cup. The old wall clock ticked above the stove, loud in the emptiness of the kitchen. Charles came to mind. He was the sort of man who never waited to be asked for help. When a storm peeled half the shingles off my roof 2 summers ago, he was up a ladder with a hammer by 8 the next morning. Men like him deserved something finer than patched-up gratitude. So I buckled the bottle into the passenger seat of my old truck and drove it out to his place on the edge of town. His white farmhouse stood proud against the October sky, porch rails gleaming. When he opened the door, sawdust clinging to his boots, his eyes went straight to the whiskey in my hands. "From Nathan," I said, handing him the bottle. Charles raised his eyebrows. "Nathan sent you this?" "Yeah. Figured you'd enjoy it more than I would." He turned the bottle in his hands, studying the label like it was a rare artifact. "This is the kind of whiskey you put away for a wedding or a birth. Or you make tonight special," I told him. A smile broke across his face. "Then tonight it is." "Thank you, Frank." It felt good, letting it go, like the bottle had landed where it belonged. On the drive back, the sun tilted low, painting the fields amber. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I kept thinking about it. Nathan had never been one to spend money carelessly. When he was younger, he couldn't fill his gas tank without asking me for $20. So why this? Why a gift he knew I couldn't touch? That evening, the house smelled of pot roast and onions. A meal built for company, though I ate it alone. The clock's steady tick filled the silence. Then the phone rang. "Hello, Dad." Nathan's voice, smooth, casual, like time had never passed. I leaned against the counter, gripping the receiver. "Happy birthday," Nathan said, but the pause before the words made them sound practiced. "Did you get my gift?" "I did," I answered. "Well? What did you think?" "It's a fine bottle. Did you try it yet?" His tone sharpened, just slightly, at the edges. "No," I said. "I passed it along to Charles. Thought he'd get more use out of it." The silence that followed wasn't static. It was heavy, deliberate, like someone drawing breath before speaking. "You gave it to Charles?" His voice had cooled. "That's right." A slow exhale came across the line. Then, click. He was gone. I stared at the receiver, the steady tick of the wall clock louder now. The roast sat heavy in my stomach, but not from food. Something in Nathan's question unsettled me, the way he'd asked, like the whiskey mattered more than it ever should. I turned off the kitchen light and went to bed. Sleep was thin and restless, the kind that left me more tired when morning came. By midday, I'd almost convinced myself to let it go. Then the phone rang again. "Mr. Dalton?" The voice was unfamiliar, urgent. "Yes. This is Marie, Charles's wife. He's in the hospital. Collapsed this morning. They think it might be poisoning." The coffee cup froze in my hand. "Poisoning?" I repeated. Her voice cracked. "He was fine last night. We had a glass with dinner, and this morning he could barely stand." My eyes went straight to the counter, where the whiskey bottle had sat just the night before. "Did he eat anything unusual?" she asked. "No," I said slowly. "But I gave him a bottle yesterday." "From Nathan?" she whispered. Hospital noise buzzed in the background, monitors beeping, wheels squeaking against tile. "I'll tell the doctors." When she hung up, I stood in the kitchen, the house too still, too quiet. October light dulled against the window. I didn't turn on the radio. I just replayed the last 24 hours in my head, the package, the handwriting, Nathan's voice when I told him I'd given the whiskey away. That long, heavy pause. By the next day, Henry called. "Frank," he said, voice tight. "You're not going to like this. There's white snakeroot in the whiskey. Enough to stop a man's heart." I closed my eyes. The phone felt heavy in my hand. "You said Charles drank this?" "Yes. But you didn't?" "No." A long breath hissed down the line. "Then you dodged a bullet." I set the receiver down slowly. The house was silent but felt alive, listening. That bottle hadn't been a gift. It had been a message. That night, I drove into town, the streets empty under sharp October light. At St. Mary's, Charles lay pale against the hospital sheets. Machines pulsed beside him, stubborn proof of life. His wife sat close, hands clasped together not in prayer but like she was trying to keep air from leaking out of her chest. I didn't belong there as family, but I belonged there as something else, the man who had put that bottle in his hands. Charles looked fragile, hair falling across his forehead, lips parted for slow breaths. He was a man who had once hauled shingles up my roof without complaint, now made small by a poisoned glass. I stepped closer. "Did he eat or drink anything unusual last night?" Marie's eyes searched mine. "We both had one glass with dinner." "From the bottle you brought?" He said it was the finest whiskey he'd ever tasted. Her words cut deeper than any accusation. "You need to tell the doctors," I said firmly. It was new. Unopened. And I've still got a sample left at my house. She reached for my hand but stopped halfway, gripping the rail instead. "Frank, what is this? Do you think Nathan?" "I don't know what I think," I lied. "But I'm going to find out." The doctor entered, calm-faced, speaking of heart rhythms and toxins. He had no answers, only promises of tests. When he left, I promised Marie I'd call with anything useful. She nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on her husband's chest rising and falling. I walked out of the hospital feeling the weight of betrayal pressing on my ribs. White snakeroot. Deliberate. Calculated. Back home, the mason jar glimmered faintly behind the milk in the fridge. I held it to the light. You'd never know by looking. The most dangerous things never look like much. I went to the trash. The little vial I'd seen yesterday was gone. The bag had been lifted and put back the wrong way around. Someone had been inside my house. The deadbolt was still set. The windows still latched. I kept no spare keys under rocks or mats. Yet someone had stood where I now stood. Not panic, panic is useless. I needed quiet, useful thought. I called Henry. The vial's gone, I told him. Not by my hand. Frank, he said carefully, you need to involve the police. That vial was proof. I know. And don't let whoever did this think you're asleep at the wheel. I won't. I hung up and brewed coffee I didn't want. Then I sat at the table with a legal pad, drew a line down the center. Left side, what I know. Right side, what I can prove. On one side, Nathan's voice. On the other, a poison sample. The bridge between them wasn't built yet. From the desk drawer, I pulled an old digital recorder, scuffed and cheap. I slipped it into my jacket pocket, its weight pressing against my chest like a reminder to keep breathing steady. By noon, I parked outside Nathan's subdivision. All the houses looked the same, rows of copy-paste perfection. His truck gleamed in the driveway, newer than mine by a decade. When he opened the door, surprise flickered across his face, followed by calculation, then a smile he thought would pass as warmth. Dad, he said. Unexpected. Is it? I asked, stepping inside. The air smelled of lemon cleaner, too neat, too controlled. I heard about Charles, he said. Scary. Leah's with him now. Doctors think maybe a virus. Is that what they think? My tone was flat. His kitchen counter gleamed with bottles of bourbon and rye. None of them the one he'd sent me. Did you try the bottle you gave me? I asked. He laughed lightly. The whole point was for you to enjoy it. You know I don't drink anymore. People change. He shrugged, as if I were no more than an inconvenience. Nathan blinked once, slower than reflex. Funny thing, I continued. I never told you where I stored it. For a fraction of a second, his body went still, like an animal hearing a twig snap. Then he forced a laugh, shook his head. You must have. You get chatty when you're sentimental. I didn't, I said, locking eyes with him. He picked up a dish towel, drying a glass that was already spotless. Dad, you always overthink. Always fixing things no one asked you to fix. You sent me a bottle I couldn't drink. I'm just trying to fix that. Then maybe don't, he said, voice almost gentle. Maybe give me the benefit of the doubt for once. Silence stretched. I'm going to ask you one question, I said. And I'll let the silence after tell me the answer. His eyes narrowed. Okay. Did you tamper with that whiskey? The fridge hummed. The microwave clock clicked forward a minute. Outside, a car passed slowly. He said nothing. Goodbye, Nathan, I said at last. Dad, he called as I reached the door, his tone a hook and a warning. You keep accusing me, you'll push me away. I'm not accusing, I told the door. I'm collecting. Outside, the air bit cold against my face. In my truck, I pressed the recorder's stop button. The red light blinked off. I didn't drive home. Instead, I parked at the far end of a grocery lot and called a number I'd been avoiding. Detective Reyes, a voice answered. My name's Frank Dalton, I said. I believe I have information about a poisoning. I've got a sample and an audio recording you might want. He didn't press for details over the line. Can you come in this afternoon? Yes. He gave me an office number tucked away in the back hallway of the station. Back home, I sealed the mason jar and recorder into a cigar tin, then doubled the bags around it. Paranoia feels like common sense once someone's been inside your house. I locked up and drove to the station. Reyes's office was small, window facing a brick wall. He was younger than me but older than a rookie, eyes sharp, tie straightened more than once. Tell me about the whiskey, he said after offering me water. So I did. The package. Nathan's words. The pause that wasn't surprise. I gave him facts like index cards, no theories, no embellishment. Then I set the bag on his desk and pulled out the mason jar and recorder. He didn't touch them yet. Who else has keys to your house? He asked. No one. Not anymore. Any sign of forced entry? No. But the trash was disturbed. A vial went missing. He leaned back. Mr. Dalton, I'll say this plain. Don't meet your son. If he calls, let it go to voicemail. If he shows up, call us. I nodded. For the first time since the package arrived, I felt like someone else had picked up a corner of the weight I'd been carrying. When I left, the sky had gone gray-bright, the kind that hurts your eyes. At the hospital, Charles looked stronger. He opened his eyes and whispered, "You look like hell." "You should see yourself," I said. He smiled weakly, the kind of smile that uses only half the face. "Heard you're making friends with the police." "I'm making sure they're on our side," I said. He nodded, drifting back to sleep. Later, in the hall, his daughter-in-law Leah stopped me. Her eyes were rimmed red, but sharp. "Frank," she said, voice low. "We need to talk." We found a quiet corner near a vending machine that hummed like static. "I don't know what you know," she said, "but Nathan's been different. Distant. Secretive. He keeps jars in the garage, plants dried, labeled. He says it's a hobby." I didn't think, she swallowed. I didn't think it connected to this. "White snakeroot," I said. Her eyes flicked with recognition, or fear. "Yes. I saw it in his search history." I thought he was just reading. "Detective Reyes will want to hear that. Keep anything you've got, screenshots, messages." She nodded too quickly. "Why would he do this to you?" she whispered. I could have said money, control, anger. Instead, I told the truth, because if he can't own the story, he'll burn the page. That night, I installed new deadbolts on both doors and cheap stick-on alarms that screamed when opened. It wasn't much, but it was something I'd done with my own hands, which mattered. At 9:30, the phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring to voicemail. Minutes later, the message came through. Nathan's voice, low and wired. "We need to talk. Don't make this worse than it is." I wrote it down word for word and slid the note into the fireproof box where I kept everything now. Evidence. Memory. Proof. By morning, frost glittered across the yard. Reyes called. The state lab confirmed Henry's results. Enough to open a formal case. "We'll move forward." "Tell me what you need," I said. "Keep documenting. Don't engage. Lock your doors." After he hung up, I showered, shaved, ate breakfast at the table like every bite was a choice I needed to get right. Then I drove to the hospital. Charles was awake, joking about chainsaw safety articles in a magazine I'd brought. Leah entered with her phone clutched tight. "He texted me," she said quietly. "Asked if you were playing hero. Said if anything happens, it's on you." I felt heat rise in my chest, not the old failing kind, but the sharp, new kind that knows the difference between warning and threat. "Forward it to Reyes," I told her. "And don't reply. Not a word." Later that day, I drove home the long way, circling streets I hadn't seen in years. When I got back, the thread I'd laid across the doorframe was intact. I stepped over it carefully, honoring it like a line I couldn't afford to cross. The house was too quiet. I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow pad and wrote at the top, "What does he want?" 2 columns, money. Control. Under money, I wrote the $20,000 I'd refused him last winter. Under control, I wrote, the bottle, the missing vial, the calls. Control weighed heavier. Money fades. Habits last. At noon, the door alarm screamed. I moved to the window and watched a delivery driver drop a padded envelope on the mat. When the truck left, I opened the door. Inside was a photograph. My porch. My swing. Taken in the dark. The house itself was watching me now. I slipped the photograph into a plastic sleeve and called Reyes. "Don't throw it away," he said. "We'll send someone." An officer arrived, documented the photo, the envelope, the mat. Practical work. Work that laid track. By evening, the street was still. I sat on the back steps with a bowl of soup, the air sharp in my lungs. The porch swing didn't move, but I couldn't stop glancing at it. Later, the phone buzzed again. Another message from Nathan: "You think they'll keep you safe from what you started? Call me." I didn't. I copied the words and slid them into the box. The fireproof lid clicked shut, soft and final. That night, I lay on the couch with the hall light on, Boots by the door. Too old for heroics. Not too old to be ready. At dawn, the phone rang. "Reyes. State lab confirmed. We're filing for a warrant." I closed my eyes. The swing. The thread across the door. The bottle catching firelight. "Where do you need me?" "Right where you are," he said. "And don't open that door unless the person outside proves they're here to help." My chest went cold. "He left me a message," I whispered. "That's what it looks like," Reyes said. "We'll log everything. Leah's cooperating." "Do you have him in custody?" "Not yet. He wasn't home when we arrived. We've put out a locate." I gripped the phone tighter. "If he comes here, call 911 immediately. We've already flagged your address for priority response." I opened the fireproof box and wrote a new card. 2:04 p.m. Reyes called. Found jars, notes, letter. I read through the others one by one, proof that none of this was fever or dream. At 4:12, the back door alarm shrieked. I froze, phone in hand, and eased to the kitchen window. The screen door swung once, twice. No one in sight. A folded paper was wedged between the handle and frame. I disarmed the alarm and pulled it free. Thick black marker scrawled one sentence: "Stop letting them in, or I will." No signature. I called Reyes. Within minutes, Patel arrived, photographed the note, the handle, the yard beyond. He left with the evidence. That night, I sat in a chair where I could see both doors. Lights on. Waiting. Kindly subscriber, share your thoughts and turn on the notification button. At 9:45, the phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring to voicemail. Minutes later, I pressed play. "Dad, it's me. They're making a mistake. Those things they found, they're not what they think. You know me better than that. Call me. Please." His tone was calm, measured. Almost gentle. The kind of voice a salesman uses when he wants you to believe the pitch. I didn't call back. I copied the words and added them to the box. The next morning, frost glazed the lawn. At 8:12, Reyes texted, "We have him. Brought in without incident. We'll update." I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the thread still across my door. Intact. Honest. Nathan was in custody now. But his voice still echoed in my ears, low and steady, this isn't what it looks like. You know me. Now I thought to myself, did I do the right thing when I just betrayed my son, Nathan? But how about Charles? How do I defend the poisoned whiskey that came from Nathan?